Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Bailey, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here as well.
Let's jump straight into it. What pulled you into the fantastic yet stressful job of consulting and leadership development work?
Well, I definitely didn't plan on being a consultant. I certainly didn't grow up even thinking that I would be an entrepreneur, to be completely transparent. I have no business owners around me, and my parents didn't even fully graduate high school until later. So it was kind of the only plan in my future was to make sure that I got my bachelor's degree. Consulting is interesting because my business is called SkillsCamp. It is leadership development, soft skills training is where it began. And now it is a learning studio that you might consider, everyone here listening, learning consulting or leadership consulting. And the way that it came about was just realizing that we had acquired an abundance of knowledge, of experience. And then as my business started delivering learning and more, and suddenly there was more years, and suddenly there was more countries and more companies and more industries, we realized that we had actually gained a kind of knowledge that was quite rare in and of itself. The ability to take what we know as, say, like a learning designer or, what makes really great leaders, and then also be able to have the experience of a number of industries. That knowledge in and of itself became something worth selling. And so it was sort of like, well, maybe we should. And that, so I'm probably not as formal about it when it came about as you were, or as some of our clients like PwC might be. But I believe consulting is really sage work. It's really when we all breathe in and gain knowledge and learn. At some point, you're going to have to breathe out, and whether or not you get paid for that is, do you have a consulting business or not? If you're providing advice to other people, you're helping them do things better, faster, cheaper. You're helping them change behaviors, mindsets, lead better, whatever it is that you're consulting on. If you're being paid for that advice, you kind of are a consultant in my eyes.
I'm a huge fan of Christopher Nolan. I'm a huge fan of Batman. So I'm going to pull one of the probably least consulting quote ever. It's from the Joker, but when you're good at something, never do it for free. So here we have it.
Listen, I'm also a huge fan of Christopher Nolan, very much into film, and so you pulled a nice one there. You might do it. I'll just add a little asterisk.
Go for it.
You might do it for free sometimes. I would consider that giving back. Okay,
for
maybe
sure.
Some social impact work. I don't know, Guillaume.
We need to ask the Joker for the answer on this. On what percentage of?
I don't know if the Joker is going to give you the best advice on being a good person and social impact, although
probably not. It's a philosophy.
Yeah.
Maybe for another episode, Bailey, because that could be a very interesting one.
Oh, I would love an episode on how film characters do or don't provide us prescriptive behavior and whether or not we can take some morality lessons from them.
Do not give me ideas. I have enough on my plate. So back to your business. What core problem are you solving right now, and what are you helping your clients with? What is that core problem?
Yep, it's a great question, and it has evolved over the years. So it's been interesting to see kind of where we're at now. When I first started SkillsCamp 10 years ago, the problem that the business was born out of truly was that I was seeing that I was working in higher education in a university, and I was seeing that the skills that students were making them successful were skills like their ability to focus or to communicate well, work well with others, all of these quote unquote soft skills. And that phrase has been debated and changed over the years. And at the same time, we had businesses coming to our career center saying, oh, this is what we need from students. And I just saw that this wasn't being taught in the classroom, even though it's the skills that everybody wants most. Very quickly, that went way beyond university. And as everyone here will know, because you've probably worked or collaborated with other humans ever, those are the hardest skills, the ones that are not taught, like how to collaborate well, how to lead well. And so I've seen the evolution over a decade of which skills have been asked for, as in what do companies think their problem is that they're coming to us for. And so we're helping them solve for which skills, those hard soft skills, the interrelational, the self-awareness, the sometimes intergenerational dynamics, all this sort of stuff, that would help them improve their culture, keep people well, happy, lead better, meet goals faster, focus, be more productive. Nowadays, so this has all been happening. And over the last decade, what we saw was that largely a lot of these issues, whether it was burnout or how do we work on employee well-being, or even back in the old days of like personal branding and how do we tell our story, it often came back to what the leaders were doing and what culture were they creating in the first place, what was happening at a systemic level. And then we found, and this is true for all of you as well, that your direct boss, your direct manager and leader has about over 70% of the variance of how you experience work. And pretty much like, do they have emotional intelligence is a huge part of that. So imagine that maybe half of your waking life you spend working in some way. And one person has that much influence on how you experience half of your waking life. And then here's the real kicker. There is almost no leadership development. And when I say that, it sounds dramatic, but I really mean that most organizations are promoting people because they were good at a job. And suddenly their job changes overnight to be good at people and to be good at like making people work well together, managing conflict, looking forward, goal setting, giving feedback. And I am not exaggerating in the slightest when I say most people do not have any formal leadership development, one, at all. And two, the Harvard put out saying that the average age of the people in their leadership programs was in their 40s after they had already had a couple leadership experiences. So I'm okay, what kind of damage did they do before they entered this program? So then the problem is very succinctly that leaders have the most impact in any commune of people on how people reach their goals. Do they do it at all? Do they do it well? Do they do it quickly? And how do they experience life? And yet there is no development for them, or it is really siloed. Maybe once a year they get together and they're expected to implement that immediately. And then, so the major problem is we need better leaders, and these skills make better leaders. And then let me introduce you to where I am right now in 2026. Alongside that, I personally have studied digital well-being, how technology can serve human welfare, and that crossed over into the world of business based on everything I just told you. My doctorate just recently ended, and I studied how leaders can use artificial intelligence for more human-centric leadership. So the problem that seems to have come my way in droves, and I don't anticipate it leaving anytime soon, is, oh my gosh, AI is here. It's not going anywhere. And people, if you believe the best in people, what I have seen is that people actually want to use it well. I have encountered more people that want to do good, but they don't know how. Like, what is going on here? How do I use this? Then you've got ethics, you've got like decision-making frameworks, you've got companies that have or haven't greenlit it, you have national regulation, you've got fear, you have fear stoking. I mean, there's so much going on in the AI space applied to the world of leadership. So now companies are like, hey, how do we do this well? How do we do it? How do we get our people to be able to use these tools in ways that actually help them? It's a very long-winded way of answering your question, but the problems are true for, I think, anyone listening here, because you can consult on any number of things, but I know that all of those businesses have people and how people experience and the skills they have. And then are we entering AI and tech into the picture is where I'm at right now.
I mean, we're taking a bit of a tangent here, but this is why I love the podcast format. So what are we doing, Bailey? Because you're telling me all this. I'm like, sure. I mean, you gave me PTSD with the the managers who've been catapulted to a management position. It's okay. I'm okay. But like, in a company like some of my former employers, this is very common, right? You have a high performer, you promote them to manager because you want to retain them, because that's the business you're in. You need to retain the talents that you're grooming yourself. And they do an absolute terrible job at managing because they've just never done it, and they are just finding out, and they have all the pressure of like the promotion, and you get it. But then so what? Because I'm like, sure, how big of a problem it is and how high on the priority list is it? Because I'm like, I'm a business owner. I'm thinking, okay, top line, number of clients, like time we keep our clients. Cool. Then it's going to be cost. Okay, makes sense. Admin, finance, and making sure there is, everybody is not playing video games whilst they are at the office, whatever. And then there is like, oh yeah, sure, I need to think about the managers that I need to promote for this role, and then how do we do? Plus, you're putting AI into this. You gave me a long-winded answer. I'm giving you a long-winded question.
I love it.
Now we are putting AI into all this, but it's all evolving so fast. We have no clue where we're going to be 2 years from now. Is it even worth sitting down right now and being like, okay, given the current circumstances, we need to do X, Y, Z, whilst we very well know that 6 months down the line, we're going to be in the third thermonuclear war, and it doesn't going to matter. It's not going to matter anyways.
You are asking the right questions, and I do have some insight into this.
Please.
So for one, fortunately for us all here, for one, I'm sorry that you experienced a bad boss and oppressive leader. I think that, in fact, the way that most people learn their leadership craft is from leaders that they've had in the past. And so it really becomes quite cyclical. I hope that you have done the work to think about what you do and don't want to recreate in your own businesses, because people take that into their own people do take that into their own leadership craft, whether they know it or not. So that's part one. And then part two is what should we do first, right? So you mentioned an order of priorities that's already interesting to me if I was studying you and your business, because you mentioned that the clients are number one, and that are people productive number two. So we have some assumptions in there, and you can challenge, or you can sort of like, what if we reassume things? My belief is that if you focus where it started and where it's come to, so it started with, you know what, I've seen that if you actually focus on the people, and that they're feeling that they're skilled, that they feel good about working with you and for you, or through, I would say, like with each other, and maybe that you're realizing your purpose through your work as a company, that if they feel taken care of, you won't need to worry about if they're playing video games. So that's part one. And then I realized, well, wait a second. That's easy to say, but who does that? And it was leaders. And so I would say, if you change your order of operations and you put leadership first, the leaders will know how to care for your employees. They'll know how to skill them. And they will make it so that things like values or standards, or operationalizing things that they don't even realize that they do really well with your clients, would be standard practice. I would almost put my life savings on it and promise you that if that was the case, your clients would be happy. Are they skilled? Are they now treating your clients with what has been created as a standard, as like this is what success looks like here at GAJ or at SkillsCamp with dealing with our clients? They will be happy, they will return. And so it always ended up coming back to leadership. And do they even know what they're doing? Do they even consider themselves having a leadership craft? When they were promoted, do they know what was working for them? And do they know how to operationalize that into how to even teach others to find the same results, if that's why they were promoted? Most people don't. And so then your third question is about AI. Like, what are we doing? I would say, and I love how this has all come together in my life so poetically, is that in order to skill you for tech, it's AI right now, it's going to be something else tomorrow. It was something else, 10 years ago. To skill you for those transformations, the way that people, or the way that organizations get through transformation successfully is with the people. The problem is not actually turning on the technology. That's the easiest thing that we can do, is make the technology available. But if you actually want to be an organization that's using AI to advance all of your goals, whether it's like, it could be employee retention, could be employee well-being, it could also be, your bottom line and productivity, efficiency, performance, all that. then it's actually the people that are the hard part of the change. 100%. Everyone here listening is saying like, "Oh, yeah. Yeah, I turned on Copilot, but then somebody was like, 'Why are we doing this?' And then someone was like, 'I don't know how to use it.' And then someone used it the wrong way." And it's always the people part of the change. And so if you're addressing how humans experience change from a more psychological level, you'd be thinking like, "What do I need to do ahead of the change?" And I probably also shouldn't turn on AI unless I've actually taught people how to use it, which is a huge thing right now. And everyone's turning on Copilot for their organizations, and then they're surprised that like a month later they have no uptake. It's like because you've not actually created a learning experience for adults where they can know how to do it quite literally technically, but then also be like, how do I connect this to my daily so that it becomes easier? How do I acknowledge the fact that they probably have fear around their data being used? And if I'm talking to Copilot, is my company going to use that against me if I'm asking about something like negotiating my pay? And has that all been made clear? So there's a lot of the human element here. And then this is like a 3B to your question is, will it even matter in 5 years? Here's what I think will not matter in 5 years, but is still necessary for today, which is how do I literally prompt AI right now? How do I literally prompt the versions of AI that we're using right now is a temporally limited. I don't You could speak it tomorrow and we'll be thinking it in 5 years and it'll end up in our AI. But the thing that I believe is evergreen is things like critical thinking skills. So I have worked with leaders where they just automatically know. How do they know this is what we tear apart. And then probably you're one of them. In fact, if I said, like, if we went through a workflow that was how to even get onto this podcast, we could probably think of some things that AI could support. Even just the podcast prep. What questions should I ask? Just brainstorming, like what you're interested in, what maybe you didn't think about, and then you put two and two together. What deducing my putting through all information about me or doing deep research about me, and then what did you already know, and then what did you not know, and now you're putting it all together. Your judgment is still really important there. So judgment, critical thinking, empathy, ethical understanding, and being able to problem solve, which, by the way, a lot of people can't even break down their process offline. So if you can break down the process offline of like new ideas, evaluating ideas, choosing idea, implementing idea, evaluating effectiveness, like if you can't do that offline, you're not going to know where AI can help you in the system. So that's the stuff that's evergreen and that you should absolutely be building with any tech transformation. Long answer, but like you said, long question.
This was an absolute masterclass. I like it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So how do you communicate about all this, Bailey? Because the way I'm thinking about this, and as we've just literally proven, it's not as simple as like, hey, do A, get B, right? There's going to be like cultural change, education, problem awareness, even before we think about a solution. So how do you market? How do you brand? How do you educate your... Actually, you know what? Let me rewind. Who's making the decision of hiring you first so that we know who we are talking to?
Yeah. Very often, we are working with HR, learning, and people responsible for people and culture. Those are our clients for the most part in organizations.
Perfect. So, actually, sorry, but you're giving me too much here. So you're not making my job easier, but this is how we're going to get the most value out of this.
Sure.
The ones benefiting from your help and your services are not the ones who make the decision because they know there is a problem and it's probably going to be their leaders, their team. So how do you get the attention of your ICP in the sense of like, your leader, you've not been trained properly, your team is probably a mess because XYZ, you need my help. By the way, let's involve as soon as possible head of people, head of culture into the conversation to be like, they're going to be the one paying me anyways. So how do you create a strategy to get the attention of the right people and get into the room of the decision makers?
Yes, early on in SkillsCamp, and this might be helpful to some of your listeners and viewers because I did have to sort of think differently about how we talked about it. I'll take you back to when this was called soft skills and what are these skills are. So at the beginning of the business, we thought, should we offer people to come learn with us directly and offer sort of B2C, like a learning experience that you can sign up for? Quickly learned after 2 of those, that was not the path forward for this business. And part of that is because I see this almost like a three-level thing. The first was, do your clients, like, do they even know what soft skills are? Period. And then part 2 was, do they know that they need them? And to your point, a lot of the time, maybe if these people knew that they didn't have communication skills, they may not have the problem in the first place because they would be demonstrating a level of self-awareness, and maybe they would have fixed the problem. Who knows? The third was, are they willing to spend on it? And I found that as individuals, people were not. They were more willing to spend at the time, 10 years ago, on something that was very tangible. Like, when I finish this, am I going to be able to code? Yes or no? Versus, how am I going to help you build, social awareness? You'll never be done at the end of the hour. It's just skills that you keep practicing. So there's one. Nowadays, though, there's been a lot of work done. You could say that we have contributed to it, of course, brands, writing, scholarship, all this stuff on what is this? What is people and culture? How do you make what are the skills that people really need? And that you can actually break them down and start skilling people in those ways. So I find that I have to do a lot less language work now on, like, what is burnout? And can you do anything about it with these people and culture leaders? So to get into those rooms, though, you are right that it is most often that with who we work with, it is not the leader of the team themselves. It is people in culture who understand our favorite clients, or they already understand that leadership development is important, or they have come in realizing that their organization does not have anything there, and they come to us saying, but we know it's important, and so we don't even fully know what it should or could look like here, but can you help us, because we just know that having better leaders is going to have better everything else. They find us in a few ways. Is this helpful?
It is. And I
Okay,
have a few follow-up questions, but I'm gonna let you
sure.
develop your thoughts.
The very literal looking at where does our business come from, the ways that they find us most often are through, one, still Google search. So now, as a business owner, as a consultant, all of us should be considering, what does that look like transitioning over to AI search and things like Perplexity, and how are you showing up there if your business is relying heavily on search engine optimization. So we never actually paid for Google marketing. We just, for a decade now, have had good SEO because it started so long ago, because I wasn't paying attention to key phrases a decade ago. So now that's still how our big business comes. And I'm talking like it would surprise y'all what comes through the contact form. I'm talking like the biggest businesses of the world. They're that one learning person from that one country is still the person doing the search. And so you think, oh, it's like, oh my gosh, how does like how does PepsiCo recruit their people? Literally through the contact form. Like, that's how. And so that's part one. That means if I'm making decisions about that, how are we showing up? What are people searching, and where are they searching matters still for us right now. For when as I think about transitioning to AI, it'll be like intuitive. I This is going to get into ethical gray territory, but AI search in the first place, and AI,
Mhm.
how they're selling marketing, it's about to be turned on, if not already, for you. And it's like, can I sell you something based on what you're searching, or like talking to AI about? I shouldn't even say
Of
searching.
course.
And so,
Yeah.
of course, it's like, if you have a learning leader, here's where it could be good for us. If you have a learning leader who's genuine, or just a manager, a leader in general, that's genuinely like, I'm having trouble with this, or like, what do we do here? Or like, how should I structure? What should I focus on in my business? And then SkillsCamp comes in as a potential partner. I could see how that would make sense in the future of search. Although as a user, I'm like, do we have to add marketing to everything? And then the next line item for how people find us is, like, our biggest business comes from RFPs. So being on services like a lot of public service, or sometimes big business will use bids and tenders portals, and you have to be an approved vendor in that portal. And that is actually where our most lucrative contracts have come from. So government, stuff like that. And then third is referral and repeat business. So being just doing a really good job. You can't replace the high quality work. Getting the business is one thing, but over delivering on it is another. Surprise and delight, being like, wow, I didn't expect this in a healthcare setting. And then they talk to their friend at their conference who has a similar problem, and that works in our favor. And then also brand. So personal brand of me, public speaking, doing stuff like this also helps.
I love this.
Oh, that's good.
Talk to me about TEDx. How do you get an engagement at TEDx? How do you go there? Because I feel that's an important part of what you do, Bailey. How do you go there whilst making sure that you're going to deliver value to the people and actually give them bang for their buck? But also potentially, I don't know, it's me assuming here, making sure that you can leverage that for your business, building further authority. How do you do that?
I might have a controversial opinion here. I don't know. Maybe it's not controversial. It's just
We love controversial opinions here, so
okay.
Go for it.
As a Canadian, I'm going to say this is vanilla controversial compared to the rest of the world and what's going on right now. But here's what I think. Don't do a TEDx talk for your business. Do it because TED is about ideas worth spreading. Have a good thought. Have something that you actually believe is an idea worth spreading, and then go prove it in the talk. And make the talk, if you get a TEDx opportunity, make the talk about, here's what I did think about when I wrote that first TEDx talk about social media and mental health. I did think about audience, of course. But the message came first. I didn't even have a business to offer services yet that related to mental health and well-being in tech yet. But I knew no matter what, I believed people needed to know this. What I did consider is audience. People are consuming this as individuals who mostly consume TED, not actually sitting down as a learning team and being like, let's view TED Talks to decide what consultancy we're going with. Like, that doesn't happen. So if you can inspire someone as an idea who might be in your audience, think that way. I thought about shareability and search with the way that I named the TED Talk as well. So I knew that the people would probably search phrases like social media, mental health, and that TED themselves had great search. So that is what I considered in terms of like a strategic way. But the message itself, don't make it for your business. You will be a TEDx talk that has 1,500 views. You will never go past that, and we can tell straight away. Because it's not about the idea, it's about you. So that's my vanilla controversial idea when it comes to TED.
I was bracing myself for something ultra controversial, but it's fine. It's a reasonable one.
Sounding reasonable, yeah. That's Canadian for you.
How do you? So, okay, another question that actually I want to double down on. Talk to me about RFPs. Like, I think so. A lot of guests and people listening to this show, they mainly rely on referrals. The ones who want to grow understand that they usually need to insert an acquisition channel in there to be able to expand that growth. Not sure of my English here. It's interesting. RFP, I don't get that often. So how does one, as a B2B consultant, goes into finding the right RFPs, even where to look? How do you, submit an RFP answer? How do you make sure that's, so when I was a consultant at PwC, we were doing beauty parades. So we do an RFP process for one of our clients, for banks, for instance, and then the shortlisted banks would come in person, do what we call a beauty parade. So as a consultant, from your perspective, Bailey, how do you do that? Can you walk us through the whole process of getting business and massive deals with RFPs?
Sure, yes. And actually, I feel that I could do a lot of learning here as well, but I'll share what we definitely have done and what has worked. So what might also affect this is what country you're in, or state or province, and how they regulate certain industries. Why this matters is because our biggest, like I mentioned, I'm Canadian, but I'm in New York right now, and some of our biggest partners are heavily regulated industries like government, public service, and banking, finance would be another one that's heavily regulated. And why? And especially in Canada. So why I mention that is because as part of that regulation, when they go procure a vendor, as in like, who are we going to use for literally anything? Who are we going to use for this payroll service? Who are we going to use for learning? They actually have to go through an agreed upon like portal. It's usually tech. Now it's technical. I'm sure maybe at one time it was like paper RFPs, but now it's technical. So an instance in Canada, and it may spread over, is like Bidingo or Merck's, MERX, where those companies will have to put their request for proposals out there. They will have to get a minimum amount of proposals, and they will have to evaluate them and go through a process to prove that this was fair, just. And so for us, you can become an approved vendor on some of these portals. So we're probably in 2 to 3. That's it really right now, actually, for us. In fact, when we consider growth, we will be considering which portals are of most importance to us. And then when you are an approved vendor, it means that you've written everything about your company, the kinds of things that you do. Sometimes they add like how much you can charge, but very often they don't. They have done maybe a background check. They know that you're a legal corporation. They know all this stuff. That way, when all of those clients are pulling proposals, they know the back work's been done and that they don't have to check, like, are you legal? Have you paid taxes? So for us, what that means is becoming that vendor. And then you actually have to pay attention to the RFPs that are going out. And you have to, you can set notifications. You can say, for us, it might be like learning and leadership or skills or emotional intelligence or something like that. We might get a notification. Evaluate if it's for us. And if it is for us, they are usually bigger, right? They're not wasting their time on contracts under 10 grand or anything like that. So that's why they're usually bigger contracts that come through those services. For us, if it is, then we need to go into creating the proposal. This can take time, and this is where it does suck for small businesses. There's no way around it. It sucks for small businesses. I'm telling you right now, it has the greatest time investment, but also the greatest possible reward. The proposals are very deep, in depth. They ask many questions, and hopefully you're using a service like Loopio, where you can create your proposals in response, and keep things that you use very often. For us, some of them are straight up questions in the portal. Some of them are submit a Word document. They're very clear on how they want to receive it. And we it's a lot of, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? What have you done in the past? That stuff's fairly typical. You just have to do it in their format. They will select vendors that they want to move to the next stage. There's very often, if you move to the next stage, a pitch process, and they will say, we're going to meet with you in person. And if we get to that stage, for me, maybe, feeling pretty good about it. If we get to the pitch in person stage, I'm like, okay, we've mostly got this, because we just do well. And we're personable. Like, look what we teach. Hopefully, working with my people, they're very cool people. So you'll get that. And then the next stage after that would be, sometimes there might be something else, like, can you submit an example of work? Can you meet this person? And then they'll tell you who is the approved vendor. Is that helpful?
It is 100% helpful. So I'm learning myself, because I've done it also. I had an understanding of the process, but it's great to hear it from. So I did it with PwC, disclaimer. So that's
my gosh, 100%, yeah.
The bigger one, if I can say. But no, it's interesting. It's like, when I think about how we were, what we were making the banks go through in terms of 900,000 questions each, with documentations, graphs, projections, assumptions. And I was the cheeky analyst reviewing all this, obviously. But it's so much work. It's so much work. But as you said, it's I don't know if I'm going to call it high risk, because if you know what you're doing, you have a chance of getting it, but it's high effort, high results.
That's right.
Let me throw a little bit of a curveball at you, Bailey, because you've been kind of flying through this interview, which I like. What's your number one challenge? What is the thing that, is challenging you right now?
Well, what resonates when you ask that question is actually very personal to me. And when it comes, maybe not, I don't know if you're asking for me or for the business, but I think they're intertwined.
Both.
Yeah, they're very much intertwined. And I feel like, I always feel like I don't have enough financial literacy, because and I think this might be true for a lot of people listening too, because the way that many of us end up as consultants is that we were good at something, or we have a lot of experience at something so particular, and maybe you're really good at teaching it, and you were really good at breaking down how to get it, and then you are welcoming other people into the way that you do that. But none of that means that you studied business. None of that means that you studied finance. And so I just always feel like the business consulting part of consulting is what I'm like looking for right now, and making sure that I have the right people to balance out what I know about leadership and learning. So that's like my biggest challenge right now. And always, I suppose, right now and always, literally at every stage.
Thanks a lot for sharing this. And I'm gonna top it up with one thing, which is also something that obviously I had struggled a lot with, because coming from a consulting background myself, I think, and hopefully that will be useful for the audience, just in terms of like mindset shift. I think as consultants, we get rewarded for getting it perfect. Like we are literally hired and paid a lot of money to get it right. And on our very domain, we know how to get it right, but everything else we don't know. And often, I think one of the things that a lot of B2B coaches and consultants do is that they're going to wait to have the perfect information, the perfect context, the perfect everything. The problem is that in business, this very rarely happens. And when it does, it's usually too late. Like an opportunity only looks like an opportunity in retrospect. When you look at it in the present, it's a risk. And that's true for everything in the business of consulting. So yeah, it's a very interesting one. Bailey, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders. This was an absolute masterclass. If people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
Yes, I wish we could get more into everything. I think everything we talked about could be its own podcast in and of itself. So if you want to follow me and what I'm up to, you can find everything at drbaileyparnell.com. SkillsCamp is skillscamp.co. And I actually will also be launching a new company this year at the intersection of AI and leadership, what I would consider a leadership company that uses AI, called Sage. So if you also go to leadwithsage, SAIGE.com, you will be updated on how we're rolling out that company.
So I have two things to say. First of all, nothing stops us from doing an encore episode to go deeper into some of the topics we've touched upon here, especially the Joker's perspective on philanthropic work. Second, because you speak a little bit of French as well, Bailey, Sage in French means wisdom. And I'm not too surprised that will be the name of the company. We'll put all the links in the description. Thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders, Bailey.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.